Hello, everyone. We are your landlords, flooding out and tapping out so that you don't have to, with the occasional screw. It happens. So, my name is Graham. I go by Hamhocks42 on the internet, and I'm joined by the one and only Astralsflame. Astros, how you doing, my friend?
I am doing so good after marching into battle, which feels like words I never would have said for Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
I the day I thought I'd say I'd be going to battle in Magic is not the envisionment of what happened to me the past week. But
Indeed.
it was good. What about you? What about you, Ham?
I gotta say, I have been, I don't know that I've ever been this hyped um, for an upcoming set before. Which is kind of wild. Yeah, this last week it's been great. Honestly, it's been tiring. It's been busy, but always in the best ways. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, viewers, but I'm a little hoarse actually because over the last couple of days I have been streaming a ton, which actually will kind of because of what we're going to be talking about today. So yeah, so that kind of goes into our first listing. I just want to jump right into it. I don't even want to.
Yeah, I'm
Do a little
game. I mean,
preamble.
let's just march on in. This
March-
is
oh,
March of Machines. March is here. Battles, new meta, new cards.
Oh, yeah.
Fancy lands? I guess kind of fancy lands.
There's some fancy lands. Well, we have new fancy like story bearing artwork on the game lands.
Yeah.
So that's kind of neat. Yeah.
And negate?
they're basically it's funny, like looking at it's actually kind of interesting because this is one of the first standard sets we've had in a long time where we don't really have, but there is no like rare land cycle.
Yeah, no.
There is
not at all.
That's just been a thing that has kind of become expected. Like, oh, what are the lands going to be in this set or that set? And that's been the discussion. Not will there be lands in this set?
Yeah.
And in this one, they added the game lands, which are kind of a dime a dozen. We see them all over the place.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the only reason they're actually included in this set is so that the draft environment doesn't like suck horribly.
Yeah.
Because we also have a lot of rares and mythics in this set that are like 3 colors, which in a lot of draft environments is just unplayable if you don't have good fixing. And so they obviously need some kind of fixing to help with the draft environment, but we don't have any rare lands, like any good rare lands. So I don't know, put the game lands back in there. I don't even think there's an Evolving Wilds or Terramorphic Expanse in this set, if I'm not mistaken.
I'd have to go back and check. I feel like
I don't.
There might be at least Terramorphic. But
yeah. I mean, we got Jungle Hollow, Dismal Backwater, Blossoming Sands, all that jazz. No, I just did a search on Skyfall. It's just the game lands. Game lands and basics. That's all we got.
Wow, okay. That is a big change.
Possibly some of the most beautiful artwork we've seen on those lands, which is saying something because Kamigawa set a really high bar on those, to be fair. Those were gorgeous. But whatever your preference, whatever your flavor, if you're a Phyrexian fan, well, these are, some fun game lands that fit that aesthetic. So kind of cool.
Yeah, I guess we've kind of gone from all will be one to all should have been one.
Right? You'd think. Yeah. It's funny. I have never been hotter and colder on a set before.
Yeah.
Than this one. Because the story behind it, I believe, shows gigantic glaring plot holes and gigantic glaring issues and inconsistencies within the world building of the multiverse, especially as it relates to the Phyrexian oil. And I find that really grating and frustrating, but at the end of the day, there's literally a card in this set that is King Kong riding on Godzilla. Yes. I can't be mad. It's too cool.
A lot of the partner cards, so that would be Kogla and Yadara, which is super sweet. The partner cards are phenomenally amazing. I mean, we've got 2 eyes better than 1.
Yeah, Barbaric wasn't fit with them. I love it. It's adorable. I love it.
But Jaru and Hazaret, Zimone, was it Zimone and Dina, right?
Zimone and Dina,
yeah. That's another sweet one. The partner cards, I love. The partner mechanics are great. I adore battles, fantastic. The cards themselves, the rares, did not feel pushed. I mean, maybe for a couple, but that's you. But they felt solid. I loved everything about this, and I'm super excited for this meta.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I do feel like things are powerful. Things are definitely pushed, but they're pushed in a very interesting way that certainly appeals to kind of the way that I like to play the game. You
Absolutely.
know, so if you're like a hardcore spike grinder, you're probably more interested in some of the small, like cheaper utility cards, some of the more efficient stuff. You know, like Rona Herald of Invasion is like a strictly better Merfolk looter. It's just a really solid 2-drop. It's legendary. It has this cool backside. Like that's a situation where if you're like really low to the ground, doing some intense mid-range resource management matchups, that is a very interesting card. You know, that maybe fits in like the Esper Legends list or something like that. Like, okay, cool. If you're into that, those cards are here. I'm definitely more of like a Johnny / Timmy. I'm kind of like equal parts both, where if I can find a really cool, weird way to do something huge and explosive, I'm having a great time. And this set is riddled with those.
Yes.
Like a lot of the team up cards that we were talking about, are just some of the biggest, scariest things that we've seen in a long time, like Galta and Maverin. The fact that that only costs 7 and it's a 12/12 with trample with an attack trigger, like that triggers off of any creature attacking, not just Galta and Maverin. Like that card is nuts, and it's a dinosaur and a vampire. So like it's, I don't know. I had the distinct privilege of beating some people up with that during the early access event, and oh my goodness, it is so satisfying to untap with that card. It's the best. So yeah, that, and then the other one that I knew going into this was going to be busted that did not disappoint was Atali.
Yes,
the
that card
new
is
Atali.
disgusting.
The card's ridiculous. It's like mega cascade on both decks with no mana value restriction. Like upon entering the battlefield, you don't even have to cast it.
Yeah, or
like,
attack.
Like, or attack. Like as a reanimator player, I was just like, are y'all serious? Did you really just do this?
I have a sneaking suspicion Reanimator, like not that Reanimator was bad by any stretch. Like I would comfortably say Reanimator before this set was like a comfortable high tier 2, low tier 1 because it had good consistency. Atraxa just helped that. Now you stick Atraxa and Atali. You land a turn 4 Atraxa or turn 4 Atali. Like imagine you get Atali and then get Atraxa on turn 4. Like how do you?
What can you do? That's
How do you beat that?
You don't. That's exactly. A turn 4. Yeah, turn 4 Atali. I mean, the dream is like a turn 4 Atali that spins into a Atraxa.
Yes,
like,
that's it.
That's obviously the dream. Chances of that happening aren't super high, but not impossible. You know, the card that actually really took it over the top, and if you've been on Twitter, actually, the official MTG Arena Twitter shared a clip that I recorded during the early access. That was Breach the Multiverse. And that, I happen to hit the luckiest sequence I've ever seen. And I happen to be recording it, and I happen to be going up against my buddy Carlo, Seafoam Rider Jr. on Twitch.
Yeah.
He was a great dude. And it was just one of those things where it's just like, it's funny because he even said, like, in the middle of the match, like, dude, this is cheating. I was like, I know, I don't know what to tell you. But what we did, so Breach the Multiverse is this bananas 7 cost bomb. It's 5 black. Each player mills 10 cards, and then you take a creature in both graveyards, or all graveyards if you're in multiplayer, and you put them onto the battlefield under your control. So you just take the 2, and it's not amongst the cards milled that turn, it's just any card. And so I happen to have put an Atali in my graveyard already through a discard effect.
Yep.
So I hit Breach the Multiverse, and I was like, worst case scenario, I'm going to hit Atali. I'm happy with that. Cool. Both of us milled 10. On my side, I hit Atraxa and Kunaros. And Carlo milled Atraxa. And so I was like, I got Atraxa and Kunaros, which upon entering reanimated my Atali, and then I grabbed Atraxa from his side of the board, which drew me like 5 cards. And then like it was, or no, did I have Zero and Hazard at that point? That was another one that was in the deck that allowed another free spin. It was just banana pancakes. Like the amount of like crazy top end nonsense you can do in this set is very real. And I adore that because you do need to survive long enough to get there.
For sure. Which
is not easy to do. But aggro's not particularly powerful in the current meta. Like it's not that it doesn't exist. It's not that people aren't doing it in standard right now. But it's also reasonable to deal with. You know, like Brotherhood's End is a really clean answer to a lot. Like the Selesnya Toxic deck or like Mono Red aggro, you can get away with, you know, that solves a lot of your problems, you know? So having a couple of those and a couple more in the sideboard, you're probably going to be fine. That's been my experience anyway. So like getting to 7 mana is not super hard these days. At least certainly not as hard as it has been in the past.
Yeah, it's definitely less pressuring to try
Yeah.
to get there. Like you're more forgiving. And I mean, board clear wise, we even got a new sweet one too that does. It's not as strong as Brotherhood's End, and because it only deals two. But the
Mhm.
fact it's like Valakut Awakening or a board clear to me, like that, that's intriguing to me. So you can deal two
Yes.
to each creature, planeswalker, and battle. And I love the fact this says battle because that's
Hmm.
important because of break points for damage. Or you can shuffle your hand into your light or any number of cards you want and then draw that plus one back. Like it's Valakut Awakening with a board clear. Like what?
Yeah, it's pretty great. Now yeah, so that card is Into the Fire, and the fact that it hits battles, and so we haven't touched on battles yet, but I gotta say, I am really impressed with how well battles play.
Yeah.
Like they are really clean. I think the balance of having them enter and have a good effect, or at least have a relevant effect, and a lot of those are kind of on par with what you would expect for a
Mm.
spell at that mana value. So all right, cool. And then the fact that you get like the additional bonus if you can flip it is very meaningful. And I think that's, I don't know, they balanced it very, very well. I feel like battles are really well positioned, and I'm excited to see if they make a splash in in the standard meta, definitely moving forward, and also kind of how they change the dynamic on commander tables.
Yeah.
um yeah, I'm really excited to see that. But yeah, so Into the Fire being able to sweep battles is kind of great, because if you're playing a battle heavy deck, you're gonna get a lot of them online, and being able to just shock every single one of them in a go if you have 3 or 4 down, that's huge. Like that's a really big advantage that makes it a lot easier for those to flip later. Because now all of a sudden you only need to attack it. In a lot of cases, you only need to attack the battle with one creature to get it to flip later on.
Yep. Which
So
is
I don't know.
huge.
Absolutely, yeah. If you have to commit 2 attacks, or 2 creatures to get one battle down, that's a lot of damage that's not going at your opponent, or one of their planeswalkers. So that resource management is really interesting,
Mhm.
and yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the value assessment that people have for the various types of battles is really cool. As a commander player, though, I adore them
Yeah.
because I love playing very aggressive, very assertive decks. But I also hate like just smacking people around randomly in the early game while they're trying to get set up. It's always an awkward moment at a table with your friends where it's just like, well, I have a hasty attacker. Nobody has anything. Like in some cases, maybe they didn't even play a land yet. It's like, well, I got to swing this at somebody. It's like, well, where do I go? Because it's value. Like that chip damage matters. So I'm not gonna not do it. But who do I send it to? Well, if you're in a situation where it's like, well, I'm gonna put this battle down. I'm gonna send all my damage that way. You're not making anybody angry. You're just, I don't know. I think that's going to change the dynamics in Commander quite a bit, and I like that. I think that's kind of cool.
I do as well. I actually had a discussion with a few friends of mine. One of my friends is an L1 judge, and we were talking
Mm,
about the impact of battles on Commander. And I proposed an idea for us to play test at our pod next time. Because while battles can be in a deck, I actually consider them a potential way to be an additional game piece outside of your deck,
mm,
similar to Plane Chase. And the idea we wanted to test was we're going to get all the copies of the battles, we're going to put them into what we call the battle deck. We're going to shuffle it up and deal one battle to each player. The color restrictions will not matter. You can cast your battle as though it was of any color, so it does not get restricted to your deck for balance.
okay.
And you can cast your battle from exile. You do its ETB, you can pay in its X cost, you can put it under whatever opponent you want. But it was to add the fact is you are a commander player and you're attempting to invade a plane was the idea.
Huh. I like
And
that.
when you complete your battle, you draw another from the battle deck.
Oh, so you always have a battle kind of locked
Yes.
and loaded, like outside the game? That's really neat. I
Yeah.
like it.
So I don't know the balance.
Huh.
Obviously, we haven't tested it, but that was the theory. We're like, this might be like a really interesting way to like try plane chase, but with battles, it's like an extra game piece.
That's a cool, yeah, that's a cool dynamic. I like it. I
Yeah.
definitely want to get in on something like that.
We'll
It
talk. We'll organize something.
sounds good. Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. Um, Yeah, doing that over spell table might be a little tricky, but actually, I guess not really, because you only have to draw one card off the deck each time. So as long as one person is
Yeah,
monitoring who gets what, and we record it somehow, yeah, that wouldn't
that's
be too
it. You
bad.
like
Okay,
you basically just have Infinite Token, like rock the
yeah,
Infinite Token.
sweet. All right, easy enough.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's a neat idea. No, battles, and it's funny when battles first got announced, and by announced, I mean they released the attracts a reminder text,
Yeah.
and everyone was like, "Wait, what the?" I remember thinking at the time that this is ridiculous. We don't need another type. We already have arguably too many types to begin with. I've heard on podcasts and in interviews, I've heard Mark Rosewater, the head designer of Magic, say that he doesn't like the fact that instants and sorceries are two different types.
Mhm.
You know, he specifically has said, man, if I could go back, like if we weren't too far, like way too far along now, I would rather have everything be a sorcery and some of them have flash. You know, and it's like,
Fair.
oh, that actually would make a lot of sense, but it would fundamentally change how the game is played right now. So obviously, there's no way we could do that now.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
But it's one of those where, like, you know, now that you mention it, yeah, that's kind of elegant. Like, that would actually make a lot of sense. So I don't know, like, I see where he's coming from there. And so the idea of like we're adding a new type and it's a permanent.
Yeah.
It's like there's already this blurred line between enchantments and artifacts. You know, where it almost feels kind of arbitrary as to what qualifies as an artifact versus what qualifies as an enchantment.
Well, especially when you touch on lands now, because we have seen artifact lands and enchantment lands. Like,
yep, and we have enchantment creatures now and artifact creatures. So
Yeah.
it's just like there was a time when like where you look at like some of the old enchant worlds or some of the auras where it's just like, okay, if these aren't physical things,
Mhm.
these are properties that are being bestowed upon something else. All right, that's an enchantment. Whereas the artifacts, like this is an object you could like pick up and hold or get crushed by. You know, like this is like, okay, this is a thing in the world. And that differentiation kind of made sense. But now, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. With the fact that enchantment is now like a super type that we see on, I don't know if it's not a super type, but a type that we see on creatures and things. It's like, well, okay, now we have enchantments that are like physical objects. All right, so now why are these? Yeah. So in any event, the idea of a new type, like a new card type, being introduced to the game, like sagas were the last time we saw something like that.
Yes.
Where they added a permanent that behaved differently than anything else we'd seen before. And sagas were brilliant, and I think just calling them enchantments with the subtype of saga made a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Like that was clean. And so I was when I saw these, or when I heard that these were coming, my immediate reaction is like, why wouldn't that just be a subtype of an artifact or an enchantment? Why do we need to make a whole new thing? And now looking at them, seeing how they play, seeing what they do, kind of makes sense that this is its own thing. Because at this point, with the exception of creatures or like planeswalkers that are you hit with like liquid metal torque or anything like that, you can't deal damage to an artifact or you can't deal damage to an enchantment, you know, unless that permanent has another type that allows it to be damaged. But battles, you can deal damage to them. And they're clearly not planeswalkers, so, you know, yeah, them being their own thing, okay, that actually does make sense. I buy it. And I didn't see this coming. I didn't spend a ton of time, like, trying to, like, guess as to what battles were going to be, because we had so little information to go off of. It felt like kind of a waste of time.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people were coming up with different things. But I do like this final design. I think it's shockingly elegant. It plays really well. The only issue that I see with it is the fact that the text is sideways.
Yeah, that's the one. Like, it's even better. So, like, when you look at the paper card, it like I get it. Like, it's sideways for sure. Going into Arena, like when you look at the card in Arena, it shows up on sideways, but when you inspect the card, it turns it horizontal. Like a portrait again. It's like, do we really need to like do this way? But like.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know they look different than anything else on the field. So, all right. Like, and I haven't played them in paper yet, so I don't know how they're going to work or, you know, how they play out in that regard. But, yeah, on Arena, it's interesting because, like, in the deck builder and in your hand, like, everything on Arena is designed to have a vertical card, like, of course, you know? And so what they did was they just cropped the artwork and just reoriented the text so it's all vertical. Yeah, exactly, until you hover over it.
Yeah.
And then you see the horizontal version, which I gotta be honest, I found really disorienting when I first did that.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, that's different. I'm sure I'll get used to it. I'm sure it's not good. I'm not like harping on it as a huge issue, but it was one of those where it's like, that's different. Like, yeah, it's definitely different. But I'd imagine in paper, like that's gonna be really obnoxious, especially if you're not as familiar with the card.
Yep.
Like maybe you're playing somebody else's deck, or you know, or at the pre-release when you know these are all new cards. It's like, how do you read that in your hand without your opponent knowing, oh, they have a battle?
I was gonna say it's like, got this card in my hand. Sorry.
Yeah. Like,
Okay.
all right. Yeah, like or like, yeah, like it's very obvious what you're doing. You know, it's like, yeah, it's I don't know. It seems kind of so. It's one of those like just logistically, I think that's going to be a little bit of a headache for some folks.
I imagine so.
But yeah, it's not the end of the world. Like it's fine. We'll get used. And like double-sided cards were a huge logistic headache when they first got introduced to, and now we just all roll with them.
Yeah.
So
Now it's kind of funny when I think back to how the evolution of cards have been into the different ways they've utilized physically turning, changing, or flipping the cards. I can remember Kamigawa, you had to rotate the card.
yep,
Zendikar
first
and
flip cards. Yep.
the first flip cards. Then in Innistrad, we had the transform cards.
Mhm.
Then you had, like, obviously we've always had tapping the card. Saga's changing down the card. Now we physically have here's the card on the horizontal with the text and it flips.
Well, and the funniest, like I just realized something. There are cards that say tap or untap target permanent.
Yep. You can
So if I
technically tap
tap a
that.
battle,
Is it 90
does
degrees?
Does it go vertical?
I want to find this
I
out.
imagine it would, right?
I think we would have to. We need to
I mean,
play
not
test
that it would
this.
have any impact on the game state. Just like you can
No.
tap planeswalkers and it doesn't change anything. But like,
Think about it. You could be the world's first person on Arena to tap a battle, and that's YouTube. I mean, that's
that
content in
is.
general.
Ooh, that's content, baby. All right.
So there's
I
the
might need to
question:
jump-
what happens
I
when
need
you
to jump
tap
on
a
that.
battle?
What happens when you tap a battle? What does it look like? On Arena, I would imagine, because on Arena, they don't turn the card 90 degrees.
Yeah.
They just kind of like angle it a little bit and kind of gray it out with a little tap symbol on top of it. I'm sure it just looks like that.
I imagine,
But I bet it looks weird.
I bet it does. Like if it's like this on Arena, when it taps, would it be?
Yeah, where does it go? Yeah, I don't know.
Because tapping in the rules physically, I know people tap to the left. I'm not going to get into the topic of different tapping, but like the arrow on the tap always says to tap to the right, and it's physically listed 90 degrees. So like,
Yep.
yeah,
I think if you want to, the official rule is like, that it's got to be. I think it's 90. Yeah, does it say 90 degrees in the official like comprehensive rules? I don't know.
I would have to double check. I want to say yes. I do know it kind of stipulates, but
I know that players who tap their lands and creatures at a 45-degree angle, or the folks who tap left, seem to do so militantly. Like if you call them out on it, they will fight you.
yes, they will.
And it's not worth it. Like for the record, unless like I found as long as it's at least 45 degrees, it's very clear. Like, that's the big thing. Is it clear that land is tapped or untapped? That's really what matters. If you can
100%.
tell, like if it's 90 degrees to the left, whatever, just play the game. You know, like even if I generally tap right 90 degrees. That's just how I learn, so that's what I always do. But I don't know. Like honestly, I've been halfway through a Commander game where I've been sitting across somebody for a half an hour, and it never even occurred to me that they were tapping left.
Yeah.
You know, it's just but they were the whole time. Like, oh, all right.
So
I don't know.
The rule stipulation, just because I was curious and looked this up.
Yeah, of course.
To tap a permanent, turn it sideways from an upright position. It does not specify left or right, but the tap symbol does indicate the turning. But yeah, you can tap it left or right.
Yeah, the tap symbol's definitely pointed right. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing I can find on official, but that's what it says. So there you go.
Okay. Good deal. But anyway, so tapping battles doesn't impact the game at all, but it can be done. Therefore, it must be done.
It has to happen.
We
Theories must be tested. What is the
Indeed.
relevance of tapping a battle? What will it achieve?
Well, actually, wait. Oh no, I was about to say, like, would it come in tapped on the other side? It would not, because you're casting the other side. Yeah. So, in any event, good stuff. Oh, another fringe case related to battles that I did get an opportunity to test during early access. Was what happens if your opponent steals one of your battles?
Oh.
So I had a situation where I was going up against Strider Stone, lovely streamer, great dude. I'm trying to remember how he did. I think he like hit it with a Siphon Insight or something, but he stole one of my battles and threw it out. And so he was the controller of a battle I owned.
Right.
And I was in a situation where I had enough damage going at him. I had used Invasion of Tarkir. So I had the Dread Maw that allows all my dragons to shock stuff. And so I had enough damage coming at him to win. So I had the last point hit the battle that he stole from me. And he got the option of whether or not to cast the spell.
Ooh.
Well, and I know because I didn't, and there was a pause. You know, he declined it just because the game was over. But, you know, but it was one of those things where I was curious about that. Like, does, you know, because when you read it, it's like, so the reminder text on battle says when it's defeated, exile it, then cast it transformed.
Yeah.
At no point does it say you. At no point does it clarify who is casting it. So I assumed it was the controller. Usually when a card says like you get X, it's referring to the controller of this permanent, you know? And I assumed this behaved that way, and I was able to confirm that yes, it does. Okay. So that's good. So if you steal your opponent's battles, if you gain control of them, or if you like pull them out of your opponent's deck with like a Gonti or a Siphon Insight or something, you get the whole thing, start to finish. If it gets defeated, you get to cast it.
So here's a question. Let's say your opponent put a battle into play under you. Like, you know, you have to defend the battle. What if you Agent of Treachery the battle? Does it then flip sides to your opponent?
I believe it does, because I don't believe you are allowed to defend a battle you control. And so the defender has to be reassigned when it changes.
I would assume so, but
yeah, I believe that's how it works. Okay. So yes, if you Agent of Treachery a battle that you were defending, yes, it would just flip. And in multiplayer, you as the new controller of that battle, I believe, would select the defender.
I would have to think so, yeah.
Yeah.
That's gonna be interesting.
It's wild, man. Yeah. No, battles are very weird. The other rules question that I don't know if we ever saw an answer to it, that like kind of broke my brain a little bit. And I also loved watching a whole bunch of, you know, Magic players bicker about this using very imprecise language. It was so awkward on Twitter. But what happens if you take a battle, you use the liquid metal coating to turn it into an artifact, Ensoul Artifact it, and then attack? Can it attack itself? Because it's still a battle, and nothing you did removed the state of it being a battle. Like, I genuinely, I still don't know. Like, I was posing that question because it's kind of, we don't have a precedent for anything like that.
No.
And so it's funny because the responses were like, yeah, nothing says you can't do it, followed by, that doesn't make any sense. Of course you can't do it. It's like, oh, there's a lot of stuff in Magic that doesn't make sense.
I would think that the only precedent that would come close to a comparison would be how you animate like a planeswalker. But
even then.
But the difference being, right, like you would control the planeswalker and you can't attack something you control.
Exactly.
But your opponent is defending it.
That's what makes Luxior interesting, because when you animate something with Luxior, it stops being a planeswalker.
Right.
It retains its abilities, but it's no longer a planeswalker, meaning your opponent can't attack it. If you do, like, if you animate it with some other means, you know, like a liquid metal coating, Ensoul Artifact kind of situation, your opponents can still attack that planeswalker because it still has the type planeswalker.
Yep.
Even though it is also a creature.
Yeah, because it's in addition to its other types.
Yeah.
I would have to think
things get weird, yeah.
It might be able to attack itself. Depending on how it gets treated.
Yeah, that is one of those things where, like, I can't. I don't see why it couldn't from the rules, unless there's a specific like addition that they made to the comprehensive rules since battles were conceived that says otherwise. Which is very possible. We've seen plenty of situations like that where they're just like, all right, based on everything we have right now, this should behave a certain way, but for playability it won't. Like Mutate, for example, is a great example of that. If you cast a Mutate creature targeting one of my creatures and then you kill the creature that it targeted, based on every precedent that had existed prior to that point, the spell should fizzle because it no longer has a target and should go to the graveyard.
Right.
But because of the way they changed the comprehensive rules when Ikoria dropped, instead it enters the battlefield not as a mutate, but just as a creature. That way, like to help kind of mitigate the just rampant blowout potential of that mechanic, they just kind of made the whole thing suck less by doing that, which I appreciate as a mutate fan. But
speaking of mutate, here's an idea.
Okay.
So we change a battle into an artifact. We Ensoul Artifact it, so it's a creature. Then we mutate onto it.
Yeah, now we're talking.
And then then we blow up the Ensoul Artifact.
If the mutate is
Let's have
if
the mutate creature
battle
on the bottom.
Is the mutate creature on the top or bottom? That's I think what matters.
Be on the
Because
bottom.
if you keep the battle on top and like you mutate like a Migratory Greathorn or something under the battle, and then you remove the insult artifact, it's no longer, or it like stops being an artifact, you know, at end of turn or whatever.
Yeah.
So if that falls off, then you would have a battle that just has like a Migratory Greathorn chilling under it, not doing anything. If I'm not mistaken, like I don't see why it would fall off.
I don't either, but it's just like that'd be interesting.
Does anything in mutate say that like once the mutate has occurred, every element within the stack has to remain a creature? I don't think so.
No, it doesn't. Not that I'm aware.
No,
of.
and if you mutate on top of a battle, then all of a sudden the battle will stop being a battle.
Yeah, then it's a creature.
And it's just a creature, and then the battle on the bottom is irrelevant. It'll still have the defense counters on it.
Yeah.
And I believe, then if it's dealt damage, do the defense counters fall off? I don't know. They're not doing anything at that point, so I don't know that it matters.
Yeah, because it's not technically a selectable target because be a creature, not
Mhm.
well. Yeah, be a creature with maybe addition to battle. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, but like if you block with it and something hits it, do the defense counters fall off? I don't know. You're not casting it because it's no longer a battle, so you're not casting the backside.
Yeah, it
Man,
makes you
mutate
wonder.
gets weird.
Mutate does. And like
Bottom line, mutate's weird.
I have a feeling we'll see some updates to the core rulings regarding battles because of all these interactions that are potential. I do have an inkling they will, if it's not set as a precedent, there will be one where if a battle is animated, it's not able to attack itself.
Yeah,
Because that would be like a
I
creature
bet
attacking itself.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I have a feeling that's gonna be the ruling. But anyway, yeah, interesting stuff.
Nice.
So as far as battles go, I mean, we're on the topic of it because it's kind of the new hotness. There in this set there are 36 battles, all showcasing an invasion
Mhm.
of a particular plane. I'm not surprised that we have 36 planes within Magic. But if you just ask me to name all the various planes in Magic, I could have gotten a dozen of these, maybe 20. There's no way that I would have been able to hit all 36 of these.
Yeah, I
Excuse me.
might have been. I think I'm in around the same boat because I could do
Yeah.
Ravnica, Ikoria, Innistrad, Ixalan, Theros, Kaldheim, Tarkir, obviously.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of them
there-
that came out like in the last, a lot of them that we visited in like the last 5 years or so. Like,
Yeah, we
yeah,
still
of
know.
course, they're gonna be top of mind.
Kamigawa.
But yeah, there's like
yeah,
Segovia, Vryn,
yeah,
Gobakon, Belanon,
Urgamon.
Nope.
I'd never heard of
Fiora.
Urgamon.
One, like Fiora's an interesting one because Fiora is the plane on which conspiracy takes place.
Yeah,
So
That's
like that's
true.
not a super old product, and like we know Marchesa, and we know
Mhm.
like some of the stuff. If you've ever had the distinct privilege of being in a pod when an expropriate's been resolved, we can all thank that. And you know that set for that. But Fiora, I did not know the name of that plane. Like,
yeah,
wouldn't have gotten there. Like I know the set, I know the flavor, had no idea that's what it was called. Yeah, and we even had like and ones like Mercadia. Like I remember Mercadian masks. Like the set bore the name of the plane. It's the only reason I'd heard it before. Yeah, wild. I just think this is, and they also just went super deep on some of
Yeah.
these cuts, which I adore. I think that's great. Yeah,
it's a nice flashback to any like mention of planes we've like talked about but never seen. So like to actually give them a physical representation in the game is a really nice homage, and I think shows the potential of where we'll be going forward in sets for the new story, whatever that may be.
Mhm.
So we don't know what's next after the Phyrexian. There's always going to be some kind of something happening in the multiverse. But like all we know is we got Aftermath next month. We're going to
I'm excited for that.
Ixalan, back
Yep.
to Eldraine, but like what's next?
What's next? Exactly. Well, and my kind of like bottom line takeaway with this set is part of the reason that it's just, in my opinion, genuinely excellent. I think Wizards
absolutely.
outdid themselves with this set, totally nailed it. And I think a lot of people are going to feel that way because whatever element of Magic you like or whatever your favorite plane was, it is represented in this set. And like they mechanically mirror their home planes, like all the mashup cards especially, or the functionality of the battles, and any card that represents a character on a certain plane, they embody that plane so well, not only in the artwork and the flavor, but also in just what they do. like you see it a lot with the mashup cards, where it's like Thalia and the Gitrog monster. Like look at that card. Like all that text like came from either a Thalia or one or the
Yeah, it's
Gitrog
literally
monster.
the two put together.
You just push them together and call it a day. Like, and you kind of get that with all of them, and they've been like tuned so that like they're a little more viable in in modern day. Well, like Kunaros and Kroxa, flavorfully, those two working together makes zero sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
But we have all the keywords from Kunaros, and we have the Kroxa escape ability, kind of, except instead of escaping himself, he's like pulling other people out of the underworld.
Yeah.
But in the same way, by exiling 5 cards and then getting them onto the battlefield. Like, I don't know, flavorfully, that's just like hit all the right notes for me. I loved that. I thought like little things like that are just, the set's riddled with them. They're everywhere.
Yeah, the flavor is on point. I kind of had a theory regarding Kunaros and Kroxa, because it was like, since the plane is being invaded, like, as bad as the Elder Giant, I guess, because they're supposed to be like the Titans in mythology. As bad as that may have been, losing to Phyrexia is probably deemed worse. So Kunaros was like, all right, I'm gonna listen to, because I think Kunaros reported to Erebos in terms of who was kept in the bottom end of next. I don't remember quite what the underworld was called.
Sounds right. Yeah.
But, like, Kunaros is meant to be Cerberus, so like Kunaros and Kroxa kind of like opening up the gateway. So like Kunaros opening up the gateway and Kroxa leading to escape. I think that makes a lot of sense in the card, and I think story wise it was like, because we're losing, like, I don't know. Explain to me Galta and Marvin. I don't get how a vampire and a dinosaur team up, but like I'm for it. I'm for it.
Well, and a lot of the team ups are like that, you know, where it's just like these two characters absolutely hate each other, hate everything they stand for, and like are morally opposed. However, both of them are gonna die if they can't deal with the Phyrexians coming in. So they're willing to put their differences aside for right now, deal with this common enemy. I mean, that's why Thalia's riding the Gitrog monster. That's why Baral and Carrie Zev are fighting back to back. Like those kind of, there's a lot of that. And it's a cool, like, flavorfully, it's kind of neat. And it's funny, I was listening to a podcast that was talking about the story, and one thing that they touched on was this notion that Phyrexia is aspiring to be all about unity, about joining together and becoming one. And by them attacking the rest of the multiverse, they as becoming the common enemy to all the people, their opponents ended up embodying unity and cooperation better than they ever could. And I was like, oh dang.
Maybe all really did become one.
Kinda, right? Like, it's kind of brilliant. Really.
That actually brings up an interesting theory, because there was the notion from just before She-Hulda was knocked off in the story. She was like, She-Hulda knows the true scriptures to Yawgmoth's will. That was her thing that she knew. And Norn was like, all right, you don't agree with like my true etchings at the head. I think if I remember, She-Hulda's like last words was, "You're not following the true will of Phyrexia." Something to that degree, if I remember right.
That sounds right. I believe it. Sure. And somebody who understands what.
Yeah.
Yeah, she understands the truth. She's the enemy. She needs to be taken out. Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
I dig it. It's funny, out of all the stuff in the story, like, I was mad that they pulled so many punches at the end, but man, they characterized the villains really well.
They did. They did.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Also, I think a really cool thing, like, so, the partners are sweet, the battles are sweet. Can we slightly touch on a couple of the functional reprints we got?
Absolutely.
So, like, and I think these are really important for the popper aspect and advantage in other formats. Like, we got a new village rates that is distinctly not named village rates. And I mean, it looks fucking cool. Like, Norn's head, it's like taken off and stuff. But that's such an interesting thing. Like, this is, so Village Rights and Reckless Impulse got their own card with their own name, and Reckless Impulse is still currently in a standard environment. So you have 2 cards, same effect, different name, that can now be run in the same deck at the same common level. That's I can't recall of that being done. I can recall of similar effects or slightly adjusted, maybe something has cycling, one doesn't, but functional reprint, different name.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. It is, I feel like we've seen that recently. I think the most recent one that I can think of that was almost a functional reprint, we had a little bit of overlap before the last rotation where Unexpected Windfall and Big Score were legal at the same time.
That's an
and they were identical, except Big Score only had 1 red pip in its cost, but they were both 4 mana instants that did exactly the same thing. Unexpected Windfall was 2 red, and it was already great at that mana cost, and then they just made it easier to cast and just roll it again. And so when Big Score got announced, there was a whole bunch of people being like, sweet, okay, I'm putting 4 of these in here, and I have 2 Unexpected Windfalls, because I wanted 6 Unexpected Windfalls to begin with. So awesome.
Yeah.
And I think we might see that, where like there's the mono red aggro list now has the option of running like 5 or 6 or potentially up to 8 Reckless Impulses. I don't know if they want that or not, but honestly, they might.
They might.
It's a decent effect.
Yeah, that's 2 cards digging deep. That's a lot of cards when red's rocking on top decks. Like if I'm hitting lands and stuff, I'll take a Reckless Impulse over land any day. Like,
oh yeah,
it's a really interesting concept to see kind of push forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Corrupted Conviction, the functional village rights, which actually shows the moment where Ajani took off Sheoldred's head.
Yeah,
which is
cool,
story beat. Yeah, Corrupted Conviction. That card is rad. It's 100% village rights. But as a result, now there are a ton of singleton formats that are out there, and if you're running village rights in any one of your decks, you now have the choice of getting another one. I think that's excellent. I love that.
Do as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually thinking, because there were a couple of death triggers in standard that I really wanted to take advantage of, and I was thinking, like, man, what could I use for that? Like, what could I use to get that? I was like, and I kind of wish I had tweeted it so I had any kind of receipts that I had this thought. But like, I remember thinking, man, I wish village rights was legal in standard. And then literally like the next day, Corrupted Conviction got previewed. I was like, yes. So yeah. It's pretty great. It's just a really solid card. Draw 2 cards, instant speed, 1 black for the price of having sacrifice a creature. In decks that care about this, that isn't a downside. That's just 100% upside.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, if you're in an aggressive situation where you're just trying to push in damage, and your 2/2 is blocked by their 3/3, but you needed to just get in damage with the rest of them. Cool. Your 2/2 just became 2 cards. Because that's instant speed. Boom. Your opponent tries to hit one of your things with a kill spell. That creature then just becomes 2 cards. Maybe it's not ideal, but it's not nothing. And you can move on from that. And you only have to keep up 1 black mana to do it.
Yep.
Excellent.
I think we'll see a slight resurgence in how Sacrifice used to play a little bit. So, we're very familiar with Anvil. And while Anvil is only going to be around for the next 6 months, I have a sneaking suspicion we will start to see one of my favorite moves to perform in a standard environment. It's not Claim the Firstborn, but we have a bunch of 3 mana steal effects. So on turn 4, you can steal an opponent's creature and then sack it to a village rights.
You said creature, but let's be honest. On turn 4, you can steal your opponent's Sheoldred, attack them with it, and then sacrifice it to a village rights.
Yeah,
specifically. That's how it's going to play out a lot, I suspect.
Or Traxa.
Or Traxa.
One or the other. I don't know. It'll be something.
Because all of these are turn 4 playable these days, which is just wild.
Just saying.
Yeah. This is gonna get nuts. Yeah, no, if a good like Rakdos sack deck could exist. And actually, another thing that I kind of wanted to touch on, I know we've been running long so far, so I want to be sensitive to that. But one of the things that I wanted to touch on are just a couple of cards that really stood out for either of us. And one that I wanted to mention, that I'm gonna like grab the microphone first so that you don't mention it before I do, because I have a feeling we're on the same page on this one.
Probably.
The new Ayara. Is truly excellent. And I think that she's really noteworthy in a sacrifice style deck, because for 3 mana, you get a 3/3 elf noble with the ability tap, sacrifice another creature or artifact. Ayara, Widow of the Realm, deals X damage to target opponent or battle, and you gain X life, where X is a sacrifice permanent's mana value. I mean, that is just pure upside. It's an instant speed, mana-free sack outlet that gives you additional value. And honestly, it could be lethal. It can help you flip your battles, and you're gaining life off it. So, I mean, the sheer value that you get off that is just insane. But wait, there's more. For 5 and a Phyrexian red, you flip it into Ayara Furnace Queen, which is a 4/4. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, return up to 1 target artifact or creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. So if you were wondering, but how can I get these Atraxas and Natalies onto the battlefield so quickly? Here you go. This is one of a ton of ways to do it, honestly. Yep. Yeah, I feel like everything that she's doing is just top to bottom excellent. And like,
Oh, it
yeah.
is. I feel like she's the new reanimator thing. I mean, I
Mhm.
imagine there exists a shell where you still play like cruelty gigs and stuff. But actually, I think there is a like Jund reanimator where you play like a couple Tameo safekeepings to keep her safe, a bunch of looting effects, village rights to re-sacrifice, and of the note,
Mhm.
she like you said it, artifact or creature. You have ways to sacrifice an artifact to do some bonus damage with like Voltage Surge. I'm just saying, Portal to Phyrexia is an artifact that can be reanimated and be sacked off and keep abusing the ETB. I'm
Oh,
just saying.
that's.
Like, you don't get the resurrection, but like, I mean,
But
three
with that,
force.
you would be blasting your opponent for 9 in the face and gaining 9 life in addition to everything else you're doing.
Mhm.
That's wild. And actually, now that we were talking about it, I'm also wondering if there's a way to abuse a Shadow of Immortality with this, because that CMC is like 15, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
Um, so
Hidetsugu he is like the second way. I mean,
yep,
that's not
yeah,
a bad.
Hitsuga's great. Yeah,
That's like one I've been really hyped on. Hidetsugu and Kairi. So Brainstorm on a stick. It's a 5 mana 5/4, which is already awesome. It flies, which is sweet. But
that's
enters
great.
in the
Yeah.
battlefield. Draw 3 cards. You put 2 on the top of your library. When it dies, exile the top card of your library. Your opponent loses life equal to the mana value of the card, and if it's an instant or sorcery, you can cast it. I think you tried it. I know I tried it, but
Oh, I
Explosive
did. Yeah.
Singularity. Love it.
Oh yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
one turn kill. It's like, and like you
Yeah.
can village rates the Hidetsugu.
You can filtrate the Hidetsugu. Ayara taps to get rid of the Hidetsugu. That was one that I did. I pulled off a couple of times where I had Ayara down.
Yep.
My opponent didn't react to it. I cast Hidetsugu, loaded experimental or explosive singularity on top, tap, bam, and on top. Not only did Ayara provide an instant speed sack outlet to fire the combo, she also added 5 life loss to the end of it. So even if they had gained any life, it was like it's still enough. It was, yeah.
That's dirty. That
It,
is so
it,
dirty.
it, it's so dirty. It was beautiful. It's really fun. Yeah, Hidetsugu and Kairi. Like a lot of people were hype on that combo. Can confirm it's excellent. Yeah.
Relatively consistent too. Like
Mhm.
you put in good value spells. It does the thing. But yeah, like
Mhm.
I'm with you on Ayara. Super hyped about it. Hidetsugu and Kairi. Super hyped about it. The only other
Absolutely.
I've maybe got like I'm hyped about a lot. We've mentioned a good few.
Oh
I
yeah.
think Italia is obviously there, but
Atali's a blast.
yeah.
Like you get just a huge dinosaur that is just not messing around, and you get just free Cascade, like on both decks with no mana restriction on what you hit. Like it is exactly as ridiculous as you want it to be, and there's no whiffing. You cannot whiff.
Hmm.
If your opponent, like, it was funny. There was one point during early access when I fired Atali off. I think I reanimated it. I got Atali down, and like the top like 6 cards of my library exiled. Like that represented a land pocket that I was going to be struggling through. Now that's gone, and I hit whatever was on the bottom of it. Like pretty sweet. Yeah,
That's value. That is value.
it's just value. But yeah, the other card that I definitely want to touch on that I think is truly excellent, Surger's Salvation. Did you play with
Yes.
this one at all?
I didn't, but
Okay. Because I did play a little bit with Monastery Mentor. I
Mhm.
did a Jeskai Prowess build with Monastery Mentor. Surge Salvation, I put 2 in because it was like, it's an instant speed, white spell. Maybe it'll protect my Mentor. It'll be fine. It was consistently the best card in that deck.
I believe
Like,
it.
if your opponent was interacting with you in any way, it just said knock it off. It was so good. Yeah, so this one, Surge of Salvation, has a beautiful piece of artwork on it too. It's an instant for 1 white. You and permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn. Period. That already is worth the price of admission. But wait, prevent all damage that black and or red sources would deal to creatures you control this turn.
Yep.
So any targeted anything, it just stops it. So if your opponent taps out to hit you with an Invoke Despair, 1 white, nope, you're no longer a viable target. The spell fizzles. Your opponent finally gets their Liliana up to ultimate range. They sacrifice her like down tick 6 or 6 or 7, whatever that is, to force you to sacrifice half your board. It says target player. So like, well, boom, 1 white. Nope, we're not doing that either. It's like, and if your opponent tries to hit you with a Burn Down the House or a Brotherhood's End, all that red damage gets prevented. Or if your mono red aggro opponent is attacking you, well, I can block it with all these little 1/1s I have lying around. I'm just going to do this, and none of that damage counts to the creatures. Be aware that any damage that goes unblocked to your face, that still counts. But all the same, I mean,
Still 1 mana.
It's 1 mana. Like, what more do you want?
Like, I paid 3 mana for Teferi's Protection.
Mm-hmm.
This is like scaled down, still good. I would pay 2 mana still for this spell. Like
100%. Yeah. No, this gives me Veil of Summer vibes, which
Yeah.
was a hoser for blue and black. It gave you a hexproof from blue and black, and it would draw you a card if your opponent cast a blue or black spell. So like at the time, that was like the best. Like actually, I heard people referring to that as the single best counter spell in its standard, and they were probably correct because it ended up getting banned. That's the closest comparison I see to this.
I agree.
And it's, I mean, I think Sword of Salvation is a little bit more reined in because it doesn't draw you the card. Like, it can't replace itself. So I think that's huge. So as a result, I don't think this is going to get banned or anything, but this is a phenomenal toolkit. Mono black players or mono red players are going to hate seeing this. I think that's going to be seeing play. I wouldn't be surprised if he's playing older formats as well, like day one. Like, it's incredible. Yeah. Anyway, I just needed to gush on that for a minute.
Do it. It was a sweet spell. I just don't play white a ton. I didn't want to touch it. It makes me it stops my stuff.
Fair
You don't need me to go on the rant. But like the next card, and like you said it, and I'm hyped to try this out in a lot of ways. Breach the Multiverse card is disgustingly good, and there is a shell. I didn't get to try this in early access, but I was cogwheels were going in my list. So for the fact it says mill 10, right? That in itself is great. I truly believe, not to say we need more Grixis decks, but picture this: 2 or 3 Breach the Multiverse. You run 4 Capricious Hellraiser, because Capricious Hellraiser costs 3 less if you have 9 or more cards in your graveyard. You are actively filling the bin, getting more of that. You play 4 Fables. You can copy your Hellraiser more and more as you keep milling. Steal stuff from your opponent. If you hit a Hellraiser, you can put another Hellraiser from your Breach the Multiverse into play. And you can still run Explosive Singularity, some Invoke Despairs with a couple Hidetsugu and Kairis to just deal some damage and potentially cast Breach the Multiverse for free.
I love this.
You like Blood Tithe Harvester, Fable, Elder Dragon War. Those are all your looting effects, 4 and 4 of each. Run like 3 Hidetsugu, like 3 Multiverse, 3 Singularity, 4 Hellraiser. Fill out some extra removal and land drop, but like you're hitting gas.
Yeah, when you spin, I mean, depending on what those Hellraisers hit, that could be really devastating. Because if you can Hellraiser into another breach, and you're getting the best cards in your opponent's deck. And we're in a standard right now where Shieldred is everywhere and Atraxa is like definitely playable. So if you can grab either of those, oh baby.
You're either using Hidetsugu and Singularity for some damage, or you're like, I am playing your deck.
Well, get Bitter Reunion in there. That way, once you've popped off and your deck is huge, just pay 1, swing with the squad.
Again, looting effect. I would absolutely do that.
And it's looting effect. Yep. That's nuts. I love it.
That's one that's been like in the cogwheel. I haven't like drafted yet, but like, first day.
That's gonna happen. I love it. I'm in. Let's go.
But yeah, March of the Machines. Crazy stuff is going to be happening for the next month. We'd love to know, what is the card or cards you are most hyped about from March of Machines? Let us know in the comments down below.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Astros, thank you so much, my friend. I definitely appreciate it. As
always a pleasure, Ham.
But yeah, definitely follow, subscribe, all that fun, happy jazz. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess that does it. Well, I suppose we should probably plug a little bit, because that's
plug a little bit. Ham, where can the people find you, bud?
So, I'm on Twitch, twitch.tv/Hamhocks42. I'm going to be brewing with all of this sweet, sweet March of the Machine goodness on day 1. You can just set your watch by it. It's definitely going to happen. I'm also on Twitter at Hawks42, and I'm also on YouTube doing my own thing, usually direct to camera topics, discussing a lot of times individual cards. So if you want to hear my gums flap more, that's a good place to do it. So Astros, how about you, my friend? Where can people find you?
Yeah, y'all can find me at Twitch, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Astralsflame. While Ham is doing the morning shift, I'm doing the night shift. So whatever time you're available, we've got you both covered. And friends, as always, like Ham said, drop us a follow and subscribe. Get the heads up on your next listing. Because day or night, your landlords have you covered. And until next time, and the time after that, or, honestly, just for a while. Like, we're making bank. Look at our condos. We're doing.
Oh
good.
yeah, clearly
Yeah. This is great.
No,
These are-
we're crushing it.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna keep being your landlords. Until next time.